There are moments in life when we meet someone and feel, without any logical explanation, that we have known that person for a very long time. Eyes meet, and something deeper than reason recognizes the other's presence. These are encounters that transcend the ordinary and awaken in us an ancestral sensation, as if two souls were reconnecting after centuries of separation. If you have ever lived something like this, you know it is not just chemistry or coincidence. It is something that touches the essence of being. But what is really behind connections this intense? Is it love from other lives, synchronicity, or a mirror of our own soul? In this video, we will reveal an essential truth about these profound encounters in the light of Carl Jung's analytical psychology. If you believe in the invisible force of these connections, comment, "I recognize when the soul speaks." For Carl Jung, what many call a soul connection can be understood through archetypes, unconscious projections, and the process of individuation. When we come across someone who seems to touch our soul, we are actually activating deep symbols that already inhabit our collective unconscious. That recognition does not come from the other in themselves, but from something within us that is reflected by them, a fragment of the psyche that gains form in the other's presence. Projection is one of the central concepts here. According to Jung, we project onto the other what we have not recognized or integrated in ourselves. This includes both luminous qualities and repressed aspects, the shadow. Thus, when we feel this intense connection, we are often falling in love with an aspect of our own soul that the other is revealing. He or she becomes a symbolic mirror, allowing us to see ourselves more fully, even if unconsciously. Another fundamental point is the archetype of the anima and the animus, the images of the feminine in the man and the masculine in the woman. These inner figures shape our deepest perceptions and attractions. When someone resonates with our anima or animus, we feel as if a missing piece has been found. But this enchantment is not a guarantee of completion, it is a call to integration. Finally, individuation, the central process of Jungian psychology, leads us to seek that completeness within ourselves. Soul connections in this sense are not final destinations, but portals pointing us toward the true path, the reunion with the totality of our being. When we feel an inexplicable connection with someone, as if we had known them for a very long time, we are actually before a powerful experience of projection. Carl Jung described projection as an unconscious psychic mechanism through which we transfer internal aspects of our psyche onto the external world, especially onto other people. This projection can be so intense and absorbing that it leads us to believe the other carries something essential we have always lacked. Yet what is really happening is that unrecognized or unintegrated parts of ourselves are being reflected in that other person. The reason we feel we know someone deeply from the first encounter is because something in us already knows what was projected. It is as though the other were a mirror returning to us a forgotten, repressed, or idealized image of our own soul. Often these connections touch us so strongly because they access very ancient and symbolic regions of the unconscious, where universal archetypes dwell. The other becomes, then, a container for our own psychic content, especially when it concerns aspects we desire, fear, or do not yet fully understand. This process is especially striking in romantic relationships where projections intensify. The other in this setting ceases to be just a real person and begins to carry profound symbolic meanings. It is common to hear phrases like, "He completes me," or "She is everything I was looking for," expressions that reveal the intensity of the projective charge. However, while we do not recognize that part of this perception comes from within, we run the risk of confusing projection with reality. This can lead both to great idealizations and to deep disappointments when the other does not match the inner image we projected. Jung warns us of the importance of distinguishing the projected image from the real other. Projection, although natural and inevitable, needs to be understood and integrated. Only then can we see the other more authentically, without the distorted filters of our unconscious. This differentiation process is essential for more mature and conscious relationships, where there is room both for deep connection and for respect for individuality. Moreover, the phenomenon of projecting the self onto the other can be a call to begin an inner journey. By identifying in the other what resonates so strongly in us, we have the opportunity to explore who we truly are. The self, a central concept in Jungian psychology, represents the totality of the psyche, what we are in essence. When we project aspects of the self onto another person, we are symbolically attempting to reconnect with our own wholeness, with the part of us that was lost or forgotten along the way. These connections should not be seen as illusions, but as invitations to deeper investigation. When we face a soul that seems to speak directly to ours, it is time to look inward and ask, what is in me that is being reflected by this person? What is this bond trying to show me about my own journey? Thus, the true encounter does not happen only between two people, but between dissociated parts of the psyche that, through projection, come to the surface to be recognized, welcomed, and finally integrated. The deep connection, then, is not only with the other, it is above all with the part of ourselves that they help us rediscover. Within Carl Jung's analytical psychology, the idea that we carry within us an unconscious image of the opposite sex is fundamental to understanding why some emotional connections seem to surpass reason. Jung named these images anima in the man and animus in the woman, representing respectively the unconscious feminine in the man and the unconscious masculine in the woman. These psychic figures are not mere social or cultural representations of the opposite gender, but true archetypes that deeply influence our relationships, desires, and the way we perceive the other. The anima, for example, can manifest as an idealized image of woman, sensitive, nurturing, intuitive, mysterious. In the man, this inner figure shapes his expectations, passions, and reactions toward the external feminine. When a man meets a woman who corresponds, even unconsciously, to his archetypal image of the anima, he feels immediately drawn to her, as though a part of him were completed. Likewise, the woman projects onto the man the animus, which can appear as strength, rationality, protection, or inspiration. And when she meets someone who embodies this archetype, she feels she has finally found something essential, not necessarily because of who he is, but because of what he represents in her unconscious. These projections, while they may seem like encounters with a soulmate, are often confrontations with one's own internal contents. The sensation of destiny, familiarity, love at first sight, all of this can be attributed to the activation of these archetypes. And the more unconscious we are of our own inner images, the more intense and idealized these connections will be. That is why the feeling that we have always known someone, or that we were born to be with them, may, in fact, be the symbolic manifestation of our unconscious seeking integration. Jung did not see these projections as negative illusions, but as necessary stages of the individuation process. They are experiences that reveal what is hidden within us. However, when we remain stuck in the projected image, we risk suffocating the other with unrealistic expectations. We demand that he or she represent our salvation, our completeness, and this can lead both to adoration and to disappointment, because no one can sustain the weight of a projected archetype indefinitely. Awareness of the presence of the anima and the animus offers us a powerful opportunity for self-knowledge. By recognizing that the deep connection with someone is being mediated by these inner figures, we make room for a more genuine relationship, where the other can be themselves, and not merely a reflection of our unconscious fantasies. Moreover, by integrating these images within us, that is, by consciously developing contact with our own sensitivity, intuition, strength, or inner logic, we cease to depend on the other to experience completeness. The integration of the anima, for instance, leads the man to develop empathy, sensitivity, and creativity. The integration of the animus in the woman awakens the capacity for argument, focus, and decisive action. This internalization of the archetypes makes relationships cease to be attempts to complete what is missing and become encounters between whole beings, where the exchange is more balanced, deep, and authentic. Therefore, the intensity of some emotional connections can be understood as a dance between unconscious archetypes. Instead of simply surrendering to enchantment, Jungian psychology invites us to investigate. What is this encounter revealing about me? Which part of my psyche was activated by this presence? And what can I do with this mirror the other offers me? This reflection does not weaken the magic of encounters, it deepens it. For understanding the unconscious is the first step toward loving with more consciousness, more truth, and more freedom. There are encounters in life that seem to happen outside ordinary time and space. People who appear unexpectedly at exact moments, with the right words as if the universe had conspired for it to occur. These experiences, for many, are interpreted as destiny, meaningful chance, or even spiritual intervention. For Carl Jung, this kind of event is called synchronicity. a concept that seeks to describe meaningful coincidences that cannot be explained by direct causality, but that have a profound symbolic connection with the inner state of the one who lives them. Jung developed the idea of synchronicity together with the physicist Wolfgang Pauli, believing there was a link between the psychic world and material events, an invisible bond that makes certain encounters, situations, or coincidences express something beyond simple chance. When we are emotionally open or in moments of inner transformation, this symbolic field intensifies, and certain encounters happen as external responses to what is taking place in the unconscious. In the case of soul connections, synchronicity manifests particularly strongly. It is not just about meeting someone who awakens deep feelings, but about perceiving how that encounter resonates with themes, dreams, or internal issues that had already been appearing in the person's life. Someone who appears when everything seemed lost, a conversation that echoes exactly what we were feeling, an improbable reunion with someone from the past. These situations pull us out of rational linearity and place us before mystery, making us ask, was there something greater guiding all this? Jung did not see destiny as a fixed script, but he believed in a psychic destiny, a symbolic and archetypal path that seeks our inner fulfillment. Encounters that seem predestined are often manifestations of this destiny of the soul that tries to put us in contact with what we need to live, integrate, or transcend. In this sense, it is not that the other was made for us, but that they appear as a symbolic figure at the exact moment something in us is ready to awaken. It is important to understand that synchronicity is not magic or superstition. It is a symbolic language between the unconscious and external reality. The more attentive we are to the signs, the more we perceive that the world speaks to us, not through logic, but through meaning. And in the moments when a deep connection happens unexpectedly and is charged with symbolism, we are faced with one of these manifestations. These encounters do not happen just to make us feel love or enchantment. They often provoke crises, upheavals, rebirths. A synchronous soul connection may come to dismantle old patterns, trigger radical changes, or push us toward the truth we were avoiding. And that is why these experiences, although beautiful, are not always easy. They carry a transforming force that, if welcomed, can take us to a new level of consciousness. The encounter with the other, in this context, is also the encounter with our own symbolic destiny. Through the mirror the other offers, we see what we did not yet know about ourselves. And no matter if the relationship lasts a short time or transforms, the symbolic impact remains as a landmark on the individuation journey. It is as if the universe said to us, now you are ready to see this. By recognizing synchronicity in our lives, we learn to honor mystery, to trust the wisdom of the unconscious, and to perceive that some connections come with a deeper purpose than simply filling a void. They are living reminders that our existence is interwoven with something greater, an invisible movement that constantly seeks to make us more whole. Therefore, when you feel that an encounter was not by chance, look beyond appearances. Perhaps that moment is the call your soul has been waiting for a long time. Every deep connection we have with another person can become a portal to something greater, the encounter with ourselves. This is the true meaning of individuation, a central concept in Carl Jung's psychology. Contrary to what many think, individuation is not a process of isolation or egocentrism, but the full realization of what we are in essence, a journey towards psychic totality, where we integrate our contradictions, shadows, strengths, and wounds. And the so-called soul connections, no matter how mysterious or overwhelming they may be, play a decisive role on this path. When we fall deeply in love or feel an inexplicable bond with someone, something in us is activated. This activation may be a projection of unrecognized aspects of our psyche. It may be the resonance of the anima and animus archetypes, or it may be a synchronous manifestation of the unconscious wanting to show us something essential. Regardless of origin, the fact is that these experiences pull us out of the everyday and place us face to face with the unknown within us. The most common mistake is confusing the intensity of the connection with a sign that the other is my half. Analytical psychology shows us that the sensation of completeness we feel in these relationships does not come from the other, but from the activation of parts of ourselves that were dormant. When we project our light and our shadow onto someone, and that returns to us a vibrant reflection, we believe it is the other's presence that transforms us. But in truth, it is their presence that reveals the transformation possible, and it only becomes real when we look inward. Individuation begins precisely when we stop seeking completeness in the other and start consciously integrating what the other has mirrored in us. This integration requires courage because it implies looking at our fears, wounds, unrealistic expectations, and romantic illusions. The other ceases to be a savior and becomes a catalyst. They lead us to the threshold of a psychic truth. What we seek outside is, in fact, inside, and the real journey is inward. Often, this process happens after a breakup or distancing. When that intense connection ends, we are thrown into emptiness, grief, frustration. But it is at that moment that individuation can begin more deeply. The suffering caused by these symbolic losses forces us to confront parts of ourselves previously covered by the enchantment of the relationship. In that confrontation, we initiate an alchemical process. Pain transforms into consciousness, absence transforms into inner presence, and emptiness transforms into fertile space for the true encounter with oneself. Individuation does not mean forgetting or denying the other. On the contrary, it means honoring what was awakened and understanding the symbolic meaning of the experience. Jung said that every deep relationship transforms us because each one touches a different point of our psyche. When we accept this truth, we stop viewing soul connections as fixed destinies or irreparable losses and begin to see them as temporary teachers that help us grow. Turning these connections into self-knowledge is a subtle and continuous task. It involves reflecting, what did this person awaken in me? Which parts of me were absent before this encounter? What patterns repeat in my relationships? And, above all, what do I need to integrate to feel whole even when alone? The answer to these questions is the map of individuation. It is not a linear path, but a deep spiral where we revisit our pains and potentials at different stages of life. And along this course, we may even find new connections, more conscious, freer, more aligned with who we really are. Thus, the individuation journey transforms striking encounters into portals of self-discovery. The other ceases to be an end in themselves and becomes a sacred mirror that reveals what is most essential, the self itself. And when we approach the self, we become capable of loving with truth, with freedom, without losing our wholeness, because we no longer seek in the other what now dwells, integrated within us. Some connections follow neither logic nor schedule. They arrive like a breath of the soul, a call that knocks us off balance and invites us to look within. But, as we have seen, these intense experiences are not ends in themselves. They are symbolic mirrors, revealing what we did not yet know in us. Through projection, the force of archetypes, synchronicity, and individuation, each deep encounter can become a key to self-knowledge and the true integration of our being. If you have lived something like this, if you have felt that someone touched your soul in an inexplicable way, know that this experience carries within it a purpose far greater than just the emotion of the moment. It is life itself, with its symbolic language saying, "It is time to remember who you are." If this content made sense to you, subscribe to the channel right now and turn on notifications. Here we explore the unconscious, not as a distant mystery, but as a living part of our journey. And before you go, watch the video appearing on the screen. It may be the next step in your inner transformation. Self-knowledge begins when we accept that everything that touches us reveals who we truly are.